The frozen night. The night was heavy with silence, only the wind howled through broken walls of stone. Snowflakes fell without mercy, covering the ground in white. The ruins of an old city lay quiet, empty, and forgotten. In the middle of that frozen wasteland, a small figure lay shivering. She was the princess of a faraway world, but now she looked nothing like royalty. Her silver hair was tangled, her skin pale with cold, her fine dress torn and dirty. She hugged her arms around her body, trying to hold the little warmth that remained. Every breath came out weak, turning into a thin cloud in the freezing air. She had been left there, abandoned like a broken toy. Her lips trembled as she whispered for help, but no one answered. Her people had betrayed her, leaving her behind in the snow. The stars above were the only witnesses to her suffering. Tears froze before they could fall down her face. Far away, a man walked alone. His boots crunched the snow with each slow step. His coat was thick but worn, patched many times. His face was hard and tired, but his eyes were sharp. He carried a torch in one hand, the flames small against the endless dark. He was searching for scraps, wood, or anything useful in the ruins. He was a human, a stranger on this alien land. Suddenly, he stopped. He thought he heard something, a sound too soft for the storm. It was not the wind. It was not the snow breaking under his boots. It was a voice, faint, broken, and full of pain. He lifted the torch higher, light spreading across the ruined street. His eyes caught a shadow curled up near a broken pillar. He walked closer, careful, but curious. At first he thought it was a fallen statue, so still and quiet. But then he saw her fingers move weakly. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. The flame revealed her face, and for a moment, he froze. Her beauty was unlike anything he had ever seen. Even in her broken state, she seemed almost unreal. Her silver hair shined against the snow, her eyes closed tight as if fighting to stay alive. He felt his chest tighten. Why was someone like her left to die here? He knelt down, placing his torch in the snow. His hand reached out to her shoulder, her skin was ice cold. He quickly checked her pulse. It was weak, almost fading, but it was there. She was alive without thinking. He pulled his coat open and wrapped it around her fragile body. She stirred slightly, lips parting as if to speak. A single word slipped out, soft and afraid. "Please." The man frowned. His voice was rough but gentle. "Don't speak, you'll waste your strength." He lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light, too light, as if she had not eaten in days. Her head fell against his chest, and he could feel the weak rhythm of her heart. The wind screamed louder, snow stung his face like needles. He looked around the ruins for shelter. The princess shivered, her body shaking even in his arms. He held her tighter, forcing his own warmth into her cold frame. He could not leave her here. He would not, step by step. He moved through the frozen street, searching for a place to hide. Every gust of wind made it harder, but he pushed forward. His boots sank deep into the snow. His breath grew heavy, but he refused to stop. The night grew darker, but the flame of his torch still burned, casting a small circle of light around them. Behind him, the ruined city stretched endless and lifeless. Ahead, he spotted the outline of an old hut, half broken but still standing. Hope sparked inside him. He hurried toward it, carrying the alien, princess as if she were the most precious thing in the world. Inside the hut it was dark and cold, but the walls blocked the sharp wind. He laid her down on a piece of old cloth, her breathing shallow, her face pale. He quickly gathered dry wood from the corners and lit a fire. The flames rose, filling the room with warmth and light. He turned to her, watching as the orange glow touched her face. She looked fragile, lost and helpless. Yet there was something about her, something noble even in her pain. The man sat beside her, his torch placed aside. His rough hands held hers, trying to warm them. He whispered to himself, "Who are you, and why were you left to die in this place?" But she did not answer. Her eyes stayed closed, her lips trembling with every shallow breath. The fire cracked softly, fighting back the cold. The man did not move away. He stayed there, guarding her through the frozen night. Far outside, the storm raged. The city lay in silence, but inside that broken hut, two lives had crossed, the abandoned alien princess and the human stranger. Neither of them knew it yet, but this night was only the beginning of a story that would change everything. The stranger's kindness. The fire burned brighter inside the ruined hut, sparks floating up before dying in the cold air. The man sat close to the princess, wrapping his old coat tighter around her body. She was still trembling, though her breathing had grown a little stronger. He watched her face in the glow of the flames, pale and delicate. Her lips moved as if whispering a dream, but no sound came out. He sighed, rubbing his hands together and then pressing them over hers. Her fingers were so cold, so thin. It was hard to believe this was a princess. She looked more like a lost child. He shook his head, trying not to think about questions. For now, saving her life was the only thing that mattered. Hours passed slowly. The storm outside beat against the wooden walls, but the hut held strong. The man fed the fire with small pieces of broken wood. He checked her pulse again and again, each time feeling a bit more relief as it grew steadier. At last, she stirred. Her eyelids opened slightly, and two glowing eyes looked at him. They were not human eyes. They shined faintly in the firelight like twin crystals full of fear and confusion. The man leaned closer. His voice was steady but gentle. "You're safe now. Don't try to move too much." She blinked, her voice so weak. It was almost a breath. Why did you not leave me?" He frowned, confused by the question. "Leave you? You'd be dead out there." Her eyes glistened and she tried to turn her face away. "That is what they wanted. That is what I deserve." The man's jaw tightened. He had no idea what she meant, but he knew one thing. No one deserved to be left in the snow to die. He placed a piece of cloth over her shoulders, pressing it gently. "Don't say that. You deserve to live." For a moment, silence filled the hut, only the sound of firewood cracking. The princess looked at him with weak eyes as if searching for truth in his words. He reached for a small flask from his belt and opened it. The water inside was half frozen. He warmed it near the fire and held it to her lips. She drank slowly, coughing once, but some color returned to her face. "Better?" he asked, watching closely. She nodded faintly. "Better." Then her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "If you help me, they will come for you too. They will not forgive this." The man gave a short laugh, but there was no joy in it. "I don't even know who they are, and I don't care. You were freezing. I couldn't just walk past. That's not how I was raised." Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Instead, she stared at him, truly seeing him for the first time. His rough hands, his tired face, the lines of pain and survival written on his skin. He was not rich, not powerful, but there was something in his eyes, something steady, something kind. The firelight danced. Across the small hut, shadows moving on the walls. The man leaned back against the wall, folding his arms. He kept glancing at her, making sure she stayed awake. He didn't trust leaving her alone. "Rest now," he said, voice softer. "You'll need your strength," but she shook her head weakly, her voice cracked. "If I sleep, I fear I will never wake again." He leaned forward, meeting her eyes. "Then I'll make sure you do. I'll keep the fire burning. I'll stay right here." Her eyes widened slightly, as if she had never heard such words before. A single tear slid down her cheek, catching the firelight. The man did not know why her tears hurt him so much. He had seen suffering before. He had lost people before. But something about her, alone, abandoned, left to freeze, struck deeper than anything he could explain. Slowly, she lifted her trembling hand and touched his sleeve. "You are human. Yes?" He nodded. "That's right." Her lips curved slightly, the ghost of a smile. "I thought humans were cruel. But you You are different." He did not answer right away. His throat felt tight. Finally, he muttered, "Cruelty belongs to everyone, not just humans, but kindness too. That's the choice we make." Her glowing eyes softened, and she let her hand rest against his arm a little longer before falling back onto the cloth. Her breathing grew calmer, her body slowly accepting the warmth of the fire in the man's coat. The night outside raged on, but inside the hut, a fragile bond was forming, one of trust, one of hope. The man did not know who she was, or what danger would follow her. But as he sat by her side, feeding the fire and guarding her fragile life, he knew one thing with certainty. He could not turn away from her now, and deep inside, the alien princess, though still weak and broken, felt something she had not felt since her exile began, for the first time in her life of betrayal and loss. She felt safe. The shelter of fire. The storm outside roared like a beast, snow slamming against the wooden walls of the hut. Inside, the fire cracked softly, its glow painting the small space with a warm light. The alien princess lay wrapped in the man's coat, her silver hair shining faintly in the flames. Her body was weak, but her eyes now opened wider than before, watching the man who had saved her. He sat near the fire, his back against the wall, his rough hands busy feeding small pieces of wood into the flames. His eyes kept sliding to her, checking her breathing, making sure she stayed awake. The hut was poor and broken, but in that night it became something rare, a place of safety. The princess tried to sit up, her arms trembling. He leaned forward quickly. "Careful, you're not strong enough." He placed a hand behind her back and helped her sit. Her glowing eyes met his, filled with both gratitude and shame. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered, her voice soft like falling snow. He looked at her for a long moment before answering, "Because no one deserves to be left out there to die, not even a stranger." Her lips pressed together as if holding back tears. She turned her eyes to the fire, staring at it as if she had not seen warmth in a very long time. The flames reflected in her eyes, twin sparks of light in the middle of her pain. For a while, neither spoke. The fire was their only voice, filling the silence with its quiet song. The man reached for a piece of bread from his pack. It was hard and old, but still food. He held it out to her. She hesitated, her fingers trembling as she took it. She brought it slowly to her lips, chewing carefully. Her eyes widened slightly, as if even this simple food was a gift beyond measure. "It has been days," she whispered. "I thought I would never eat again." He nodded, understanding too well what hunger felt like. "Eat slowly. There's more if you need." She looked at him again, this time with something new in her gaze. Not just gratitude, but wonder. It was as if she had never expected kindness from anyone, and now she could not believe it was real. The hut grew warmer. The storm outside still screamed, but the princess no longer shivered as before. Her strength returned little by little, and her voice grew steadier. At last she asked, "Do you know who I am?" He shook his head. "No, I don't, and it doesn't matter." Her lips parted, surprise clear in her expression. "It does matter. I am not just anyone." She lowered her gaze, her voice falling. "I am, or I was, a princess, daughter of the high throne." The man's brows rose. He had not expected that answer. For a moment he looked at her differently, but then he shook his head again. "Princess or not, you're just a person freezing in the snow to me, that's all I needed to know." Her breath caught. She stared at him, tears forming again in her glowing eyes. "You speak as if my crown means nothing." He gave a small shrug. "Maybe it doesn't, not out here, not in this storm. What matters is whether you live to see tomorrow." The fire burned between them, filling the space with warmth. The princess placed her hand on the coat around her shoulders, the coat that belonged to him. For the first time since her betrayal, she felt covered not by titles or guards, but by something deeper. Still, shadows of fear lingered in her eyes. She leaned closer to the fire and whispered, "They will come. For me, they will not stop until I am gone. If they find you with me, they will destroy you too." The man's jaw tightened. He met her gaze without fear. "Let them come. I've faced worse storms than soldiers." Her lips trembled. "You don't understand. They are not storms. They are monsters." He leaned forward, his eyes steady. "Then monsters will learn that even humans can fight back." For a moment, silence fell again. Her heart pounded as she looked at him. A human, so fragile compared to her people. Yet his words held an iron strength, stronger than the warriors she had once known. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust, and for the first time a small hope stirred in her chest. The firelight wrapped around them like a blanket. The storm outside was still wild, but inside the hut, warmth grew not only from the flames but from something new. Trust. The princess closed her eyes slowly, resting against the coat. Her breathing steadied, no longer desperate but calm. The man watched her, his face quiet, his hand near the fire to keep it alive through the night. In that broken hut, two lives touched, one abandoned by her own blood, one hardened by a lonely life. Together, they had found something rare in the middle of the frozen night, not just shelter of fire, but shelter of kindness, the secret of the princess. The storm finally began to quiet outside. The howling wind softened, and the snow settled over the ruins like a heavy blanket. Inside the hut, the fire still glowed, its warmth spreading into the broken corners. The man sat with his arms crossed, eyes half closed but never sleeping. He kept watch, guarding the fragile life that now lay in his coat. The princess stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly in the dim light. She turned her head slowly and saw the human still awake, still watching over her. For a moment she said nothing, simply studying him. His clothes were torn and patched, his face lined with scars of survival. He looked like a man who had fought many battles, both with the world and with himself. "You have not slept," she whispered, her voice weak but clearer than before. He shrugged, his voice rough but steady. "Sleep can wait. Keeping the fire alive is more important. You need it more than I do." Her lips curved slightly, a shadow of a smile. "You speak like a soldier." "I'm no soldier," he said, shaking his head. "Just a man who's seen enough to know how cruel the world can be." Her eyes lowered to the fire, its orange light reflecting in them. Silence stretched between them until she finally spoke again, her words heavy with something hidden. "Do you want to know why I was left in the snow?" He glanced at her, his brows furrowed. "If you want to tell me." She pulled the coat tighter around her shoulders, as if guarding not just her body, but her soul. "I was not just left, I was betrayed." His eyes narrowed, waiting. She continued, her voice trembling. "I am the daughter of the high throne, princess of my people. From the day I was born, I was told my life was a jewel, precious but fragile, protected but never free. I was surrounded by guards, advisors, and whispers. But in the shadows of the palace, jealousy grew." Her breath shook as she went on. "My own blood, my uncle, my cousins, they wanted the crown. To them, I was nothing but an obstacle. They convinced others that I was weak, unfit, a burden. And when the chance came, they acted. They dragged me from the palace, stripped me of everything, and abandoned me in the frozen ruins. They thought the cold would finish what they could not do openly." The man's hands clenched, his jaw tightened as he listened. He had known betrayal, but never so cruel, to leave one's own blood to freeze. There were no words for, but she looked at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with both anger and sorrow. "To them I am already dead, and if they learn that I still live, they will come. They will not stop until the snow covers me for real." For a long time the man said nothing. The fire cracked, filling the silence. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Then let them come. If they think I'll hand you back to die, they're wrong." Her breath caught. She stared at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt. But all she saw was resolve, iron carved into his eyes. "Why?" she whispered, tears rising. "Why would you risk yourself for me? You don't even know me." He shook his head slowly. I don't need to know you to know what's right. I've seen enough people left behind. I won't add another to that list. Her tears fell then, hot against her cold skin. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling. For the first time since her exile, she felt the weight of her pain lifting, not because the betrayal was gone, but because someone outside her world, her blood, her throne, chose to stand with her. The man looked at her quietly, feeling something stir in his chest. He had lived alone for so long, carrying his own losses like stones. Yet now, sitting in the broken hut with a princess who had nothing left, he felt less alone than he had in years. The fire burned lower. He added more wood, keeping the light alive. The princess lowered her hands, her face still wet with tears but her eyes stronger. Her voice was quiet but filled with new strength. You are not like the men of my court. They bowed to me, but none would protect me. Not like you. He gave a small, almost bitter laugh. Maybe that's because I'm not bowing, I'm just human, nothing more, nothing less. She studied him, and for the first time she did not see a stranger. She saw something else. Something steady, unshaken, she whispered. And yet, you are more than any of them. The storm outside began to fade. The wind calmed, leaving the world in silence once again. Inside the hut, the fire warmed more than just their bodies. It warmed something, deep inside them both. The princess leaned back, her eyes heavy, her voice a soft promise. If I survive this, I will not forget you, human. The man looked at her, his face unreadable. But deep inside he knew the truth. Her survival now rested in his hands, and he would not let her fall. In the quiet of the night, with fire as their witness, the secret of the princess had been revealed. And though the danger had only grown larger, so had the bond between them. The pursuers arrive. The dawn came slowly, a pale light spilling over the snow-covered ruins. The storm had passed, but the world outside the hut was still frozen and silent. Inside, the fire burned low. The man fed it with the last pieces of wood he had. He looked at the princess, who was finally asleep, her face calmer than the night before. For the first time, she looked less like a prisoner of the cold, and more like the royal soul she truly was. He stretched his arms. Tired from the long night, his eyes scanned the hut. Measuring how long they could stay, he knew it wasn't safe. A voice inside him whispered that danger was already on its way, and he was right. Far beyond the ruins, shadows moved. A group of armored figures walked across the frozen land. Their steps heavy, their cloaks black against the snow. Strange weapons glowed faintly in their hands. Their voices hissed in a language filled with hatred. At the center of the group marched a tall figure, his armor marked with the crest of the royal house, his face cold, his eyes sharp. He had only one purpose: to find the runaway princess and erase her existence. Back inside the hut, the man froze as he heard something. At first it was faint, like a distant drum. Then it grew clearer, the crunch of boots on snow, not one but many. His instincts sharpened. He moved quietly to the broken window, peering out. What he saw confirmed his fears. Soldiers, at least half a dozen, marching toward the ruins. Their movements slow, calculated, searching. He cursed under his breath. His hand reached for the old knife at his belt. It was small compared to their weapons, but it was all he had. He turned to the princess, gently shaking her shoulder. Her eyes opened quickly, glowing faintly in the dim light. She saw his face and sat up, her voice sharp with fear. They are here, aren't they? He nodded. Yes, soldiers. They're sweeping the ruins. They'll find this place soon. Her hands trembled as she pulled the coat tighter around herself. You don't understand. If they catch me alive, they'll make me vanish. If they kill you, no one will ever know the truth. He crouched beside her, his voice low but steady. Then we won't let them catch you, you hear me? Not tonight, not ever. Her eyes glistened, half with fear, half with disbelief. You would fight them? For me? He gave a small smile, grim but certain. I've fought storms worse than this. A few men won't stop me. The sound of boots grew louder, closer. The man quickly covered the fire with dirt, plunging the hut into shadow. He guided the princess to a corner, hiding her behind broken boards and a collapsed wall. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "No matter what you hear, don't move." She clutched his arm for a brief moment, her lips trembling. "Don't let them take me." He squeezed her hand once firmly, then stood, his knife gripped tight, his breath calm. He had no plan but to hold them off as long as he could. The door creaked as heavy boots stopped outside. Voices murmured, then the door burst open. 2 soldiers stepped in, their glowing weapons cutting through the shadows. The man stood in the middle of the hut, his knife glinting faintly, his body tense, his eyes burning with defiance. One soldier sneered, "A human? What business do you have in these ruins?" The man said nothing. His silence was his answer. His stance made it clear. He would not move aside. Another soldier stepped forward, scanning the hut. His eyes narrowed. "He's hiding something." Before they could search further, the man lunged. His knife struck fast, catching one soldier off guard. A shout rang out. Chaos broke the silence. The hut filled with the clash of movement, the hiss of alien voices and the sound of struggle. The princess, hidden in the shadows, pressed her hands over her mouth to keep from crying out. Her heart raced as she watched the man fight against men far stronger and better armed. Every second felt like an eternity. He moved with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose. His blade cut through the air, his body dodged strikes by inches. He fought not for glory but for her, for the fragile life trembling behind the boards. One soldier fell, another staggered back with a wound. But there were more. Their weapons glowed brighter, their anger sharp. The leader of the group stepped inside at last, his eyes locking on the man with contempt. "Do you think you can stand against us, human?" The leader hissed. "You are nothing." The man, blood on his arm, his breath heavy, raised his knife again. His voice was steady, unshaken. "Nothing is still enough to stop you." The soldiers snarled and closed in. The princess's hands trembled, her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to scream, to fight, but she remembered his words. "Stay hidden." The hut shook with the struggle. Firelight from the buried embers flickered, casting shadows of war on the walls. The night of silence had ended. The pursuers had come, and the fight for survival had begun. The bond of trust. The hut was filled with the echoes of struggle. The clash of boots against the floor, the hiss of alien voices, and the sharp crack of broken wood made the air heavy with chaos. The man stood bloodied but unbroken, his knife trembling in his hand. Around him, 2 soldiers lay on the ground, unmoving, while the rest pulled back to regroup. The princess crouched in the shadows, her glowing eyes wide with terror. Every strike he made, every breath he fought for, she felt it inside her chest. She had never seen anyone, let alone a human, stand against armed royal soldiers. Yet here he was, refusing to fall, refusing to surrender her. The leader of the group stepped closer, his armor gleaming in the faint light. "Foolish human," he spat. "This fight is not yours. Step aside and live, or die for nothing." The man spat blood on the ground and tightened his grip on the knife. His voice was rough but steady. "If her life means nothing to you, then I'll make sure it means everything to me." Rage flashed in the leader's eyes. He lifted his weapon, but before he could strike, a sound echoed through the ruins. A horn, long and sharp. The soldiers froze, exchanging quick glances. They cursed in their tongue, retreating one by one into the snow. The leader gave the man one last glare before disappearing with the others. His final words were like a promise. "We will return, and when we do, no human will stand in our way." The hut fell silent again. Only the man's heavy breathing filled the air. His knife slipped from his hand, clattering against the floor. He staggered and sank to his knees, his body shaking with exhaustion. The princess rushed from her hiding place, her eyes brimming with tears. She dropped beside him, her hands reaching for his wounds. "You're hurt. Too much blood," she whispered, her voice breaking. He gave a tired grin, shaking his head. "I've had worse. Don't cry, princess. I'm still here." Her lips trembled at his words. She pressed her hands against the wound on his arm. her fingers glowing faintly. The light spread, weak but real. Her people's healing gift, though she was weak and drained. "Hold still," she said softly. "Let me help you." He looked down at her hands glowing against his skin, and for a moment, he forgot the pain. He forgot the blood and the danger. All he saw was the strange beauty of someone who still tried to give even when she had lost everything. When the glow faded, his wound had closed slightly, still raw but no longer bleeding. He flexed his arm, surprised. "That's something I've never seen before." She looked up at him, her cheeks wet with tears. "You risked your life for me. I could not let you fall, not after all you've done." He gave a small laugh, shaking his head. "I didn't think. I just couldn't stand by. I've buried too many who were left behind. I won't let that happen again." Her hands lingered on his arm. Her voice trembled. "Why? You don't even know me. You don't owe me anything." He met her eyes, steady and clear. "I don't need to know your whole story. I just know you didn't deserve what they did to you. That's enough for me." Her heart ached at his words. No guard, no servant, no royal ally had ever spoken to her like that. To them, she was always a title, a symbol, a piece in their games. But to him, she was simply a person worth saving. She lowered her head, whispering, "You are not like anyone I have ever met, not in my palace, not in my world. You are different." He smiled faintly, weary but genuine. "Maybe different is what you needed." For the first time since her betrayal, she let herself lean against someone. She rested her head lightly against his shoulder, her silver hair brushing his chest, her body trembling, not from cold, but from emotions too strong to hold back. The man hesitated, then wrapped his arm around her gently, pulling her closer. He had lived in silence for so long, yet in that moment, he felt a warmth deeper than any fire could give. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the blood and footprints, hiding the signs of the fight. But inside the hut, two broken souls had found something rare. The princess whispered through her tears, "I thought I had no one left. But maybe I was wrong." He tightened his hold on her, his voice low. "You're not alone anymore. As long as I breathe, you'll never be alone." The bond was sealed not by crown or blood, but by survival, trust, and kindness, born in the darkest night. The princess had lost her throne, but in that frozen ruin she had found something far greater, someone who refused to let her fall, and as the fire burned low, the two of them sat together, no longer strangers, but something closer, something, stronger? The dawn of a new life. The night finally surrendered to morning. A pale golden light stretched across the frozen ruins, touching broken walls and snow-covered streets. The storm had passed, leaving the world quiet, too quiet. Inside the hut, the fire had burned down to embers glowing faintly in the ashes. The man stirred first, his body aching from the wounds of the fight. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dim light. He felt a weight against his shoulder and turned his head. The princess was there, asleep, her silver hair spilling over him like threads of moonlight. Her breathing was steady now, her body warm beneath the coat. For a long moment, he just looked at her. He thought of how close she had been to death only a day ago, abandoned in the snow. Now she looked different, still fragile but no longer broken. Her face was calm, her hands relaxed. She was alive, and that was enough. He gently moved. Careful not to wake her, he stood and checked the hut, scanning through the cracks in the walls. The snow outside was deep, and the tracks of the soldiers had almost vanished under the fresh layer, but he knew better than to believe they were gone. They would return, and next time they would not leave without finishing what they started. The princess stirred, her glowing eyes opening. She sat up slowly, her gaze searching for him. When she saw him standing near the broken door, her voice was soft but steady. "You did not leave me." He turned, meeting her eyes. "I told you I wouldn't." Her lips curved faintly. almost a smile. You kept your promise. She wrapped the coat tighter around herself, rising to her feet with effort. She wavered, but he stepped forward quickly, steadying her. Her hand gripped his arm, and she leaned into him for strength. I am weak, she whispered, frustrated. You're alive, he corrected. That's more than they wanted for you. That's more than they'll ever forgive. But we'll make sure it stays that way. Her eyes searched his face, glowing softly in the morning light. You speak. As if we are bound together, he gave a tired half-smile. Maybe we are now. You saved me last night, you healed me when you could barely stand, and I... He looked away for a moment before finishing. I couldn't let you go, not anymore. The princess's heart trembled at his words. In her palace, bonds had always been chains of duty, chains of power, but this bond, this simple human bond, was different. It was chosen, not forced. It was real. She stepped back slightly, her hand still on his arm. If I stay, you will always be hunted. If I leave, they will kill me. There is no path where safety waits. He looked out at the endless snow, silent for a moment. Then he said firmly, Then we carve a new path. Not theirs, ours. Her eyes widened. His voice carried no doubt, no hesitation. The weight of his promise wrapped around her stronger than any royal oath. For the first time, she straightened her back, lifting her chin. Her weakness had not gone, but in his presence her spirit rose. Then I will not run anymore, she said softly. Not as a princess, not as a prisoner, but as myself. And if they return, they will not find me broken. The man nodded, pride flickering in his eyes. That's the spirit I was waiting. For together they stepped outside the hut. The snow stretched endlessly, sparkling under the new sun. The air was still cold, but the storm had gone. It felt like the world itself had paused, waiting for their next move. The princess breathed deeply, her breath rising like silver mist. This land is cruel, but it is honest. It does not lie like the palace walls. It shows who is strong enough to endure. He glanced at her. Then endure we will together. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was full of trust, full of something unspoken yet powerful. She looked at him, her voice trembling with emotion. I thought I had lost everything. My throne, my family, my place in the stars, but here in the cold I found something greater. He raised his brow slightly. And what's that? Her eyes softened, glowing brighter than the snow around them. I found someone who chose me, not for power, not for blood, but for who I am. I found a family. The word hung in the air, fragile but true. His chest tightened. For years he had walked alone, believing family was a ghost of the past. Yet here, in the ruins of a dead city, an alien princess had given the word back to him. He reached out, placing a rough hand over hers. His voice was quiet, steady. Then we'll build it. A family not of blood or crowns, but of choice. The princess's eyes filled with tears, but they were not of sorrow. They were of hope, of something she thought she would never feel again. Together, they stood in the snow, the sun rising higher, warming the land. Their journey was far from over. The soldiers would return. The shadows of betrayal still lingered. But in that moment, they were no longer two broken souls. They were something new, stronger, unshaken, united. The dawn had come, and with it the beginning of a new life.